What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today we're going to be talking about something that was brought up to me as a question by a longtime viewer on this channel, saying, what are the Toronto Maple Leafs trade pieces? Who are the Toronto Maple Leafs trade pieces? Is it players, prospects, picks? I think that there's an abundance of answers to this question, so thank you for that question. I genuinely appreciate when you guys put comments in here and recommend video ideas. So if you have some, make sure to put them down below. And if you are new here and you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Tons of videos are on this channel about the Leafs, news, rumors, trade videos, everything coming up. And there's already a ton that you guys can definitely check out. Some of them are having a lot of views right now, so thank you guys for the support. But we're going to go through a bunch of different questions here, a bunch of different answers that I have for them. But the main portion of this video is going to be based around who the Leafs can trade, how they can trade them, positive trade value, negative trade value, everything like that. So make sure to stick around for the whole video to see my point. And again, this is just my opinion. This is not coming from an inside source. So take this as just an opinion video. And I want you guys to put it down below. There's some people on here that we have really good hockey conversations, and we've had it for a really long time. So without further ado, like I said, if you're new, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I know there's a ton of people watching that aren't subscribed. But basically, we know that this is one of the most crazy off seasons that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to have. And this team needs to win around. And I know it's like a broken record, rinse and repeat. We keep saying the same thing. But this seems to be like the last shot that some players and personnel have. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are running out of time. They've only got 2 more years until Austin Matthews is a free agent, 2 more years until William Nylander is a free agent, 3 more years till Mitch Marner is a free agent, 3 more years till John Tavares is a free agent. This core, even though these are years, you have to understand it takes a little bit to really build a winner. And if the Leafs are not even getting past the first round, then they've got some work to do. And hopefully it doesn't take up so much time that Matthews ends up leaving this team, because that is the end of what could potentially be a very good Toronto Maple Leaf team. And with him gone, it's not going to look so good. So first off, I want to look at what their cap situation would be before we mess around with this. And we're going to. So right now, the Leafs have $7.8 million in cap space while holding Kyle Clifford on the roster, Nick Abruzzese up, Wayne Simmons on the roster. And don't worry, we're going to adjust everything. This is not how the lineup looks like. I didn't even touch this yet. The only thing I did was the defensemen I moved around a little bit. Riley, Brody, Muzzin, Hall, Giordano, and right now Mrazek and Shalgren in the goaltending position. Now, in this video, we're going to use the LTIR section as guys that we're going to trade, because it'll take the cap money away if you work with Cap Friendly, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that. But trust me, we're going to move these pieces around, and I'm going to show you guys the potential space the Leafs could have and what they could do. Now, clearly the Leafs need a couple more forwards. They probably need a couple more defensemen, and more than likely 2 goaltenders. And that's a big topic of discussion. Is Campbell going to be in the net? Who are they going to acquire? But we'll get to all that stuff, so don't worry about it. But we're going to talk about who the Leafs could trade to open up more cap space, and potentially if we should keep them, because these guys are in the rumors. But if they should be kept and the Leafs are better with them, we'll have to discuss that. But if the Leafs need to clear up a little bit of room with somebody who could get you something back in a trade, Alex Kerfoot. Now, $3.5 million cap hit. He's in the last year of his deal with a modified no trade. Honestly, I don't really hold that much to that, because players move that all the time, and it's a 10-team no trade. So he's got a lot of options, but every team in the league is looking for depth, and the Toronto Maple Leafs love depth, of course, and they didn't get it in the playoffs. But 51 points in 82 games played, his career high. This guy literally had a fantastic season, and I know a lot of people were not happy with some of his mistakes in the playoffs, and neither was I. But when it comes to depth, we're going to keep going back to the stat page. And I know points aren't everything, but in terms of acquiring guys that can make a difference and on a decent contract, I'm not really sure you're going to find a ton of guys that are making $3.5 million that are going to give you 50 plus points. And Kerfoot is a guy that plays both ends of the ice. He can play defensively, he can play an offensive role, and he was right up there with all the guys you expect to get points. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley are the guys that you need up there. These are the guys that should be your bona fide top 5 scorers no matter what. These are the guys you're paying the big dollars to. These are the guys you're building the team around. And then you bring in secondary depth, which was guys like Bunting, Kerfoot, Engvall, Mikheyev, so on and so forth. So it becomes a little bit tricky for me. But then you look at the playoff numbers, and he didn't have a great playoff, right? 2 points in 7 games. But in that same breath, last year, he had 6 points in 7 games. So it's not like he can't perform in the playoffs and he can't perform as a depth leadership role almost. But Kerfoot's one of those guys where if the Leafs are trying to retool this team and re-identify the team a little bit here, he makes $3.5 million. If you feel like you can bring somebody in cheaper, or you free up that money to bring in somebody a lot better, and it's a combination of guys that you're getting rid of to get a higher salary player in your top 6, and then you replace them with like a Robertson on the 3rd or 4th line, then you're probably making a little bit more sense to me. But when it comes to acquiring guys for depth, and you've got a guy making $3.5 million like Kerfoot, it's tough to get rid of him, but I can see where he would be a valuable trade piece. He has positive trade value. If somebody's saying that he has negative trade value, then I'm sorry. Just please don't listen to those people, because he doesn't. The next person is Justin Hall. $2 million, right-handed shot defenseman. I know I'm just going to quickly look at points, but with him, I don't really care. 23 points in 69 games played. He's a defenseman. I'm not looking for him to put up big numbers in the role that he's in. Now, Justin Hall has been a hot and cold piece for this Toronto Maple Leaf team. Sometimes he's looked very good in the top 4, top 6, whatever. Sometimes he's looked awful. And unfortunately, within the last couple years, he's had some really bad moments and some really good moments. So it's hard to really weigh whether or not it makes sense to move him. My opinion on this is if you're trying to clear out that extra little bit of cap space and you feel like you can replace him easily, which we will look at, then you're probably trading him, because $2 million can help you acquire somebody better. And the way I look at it, $2 million could be the contract for Timothy Liljegren, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But I value Liljegren more because he's younger, and right now he's the better defenseman. So I think Justin Hall is one of those guys where it's up in the air whether or not the Leafs are going to move him, because there's a couple different factors here. If Rasmus Sandin gets traded, which I don't believe he will, or he gets offer sheeted, knock on wood, we don't want that. But if something happens with Rasmus Sandin, you're probably holding on to Justin Hall, because you're not going to lose an additional defensive piece. If you trade Jake Muzzin, which we'll get to, that's a lot of money. You're probably going to just keep Justin Hall based off of the fact that you can have him for depth. Or maybe they find multiple defensemen and both of them go. It's all up in the air. But Justin Hall is the guy that gets traded if the Leafs feel like they have to keep other guys. I know it sounds really terrible that Justin Hall's just kind of like the afterthought in terms of like, oh, well, now we can get rid of him if this guy's staying here. But that's just the business. And I'm not really sure what they're going to do with their blue line, but somebody's got to go. The next piece I'm talking about here is a goaltending piece, and that's Peter Mrazek. Now, this is negative trade value. And by the way, Justin Hall still has positive trade value. $2 million, right-handed shot defenseman. Any team in the league could throw him on the bottom pairing, and he's fine. He's not going to get you a ton in a trade, but he's also not going to get you nothing in a trade. Sorry, he's going to get you something, okay? Positive trade value, but not a ton. Peter Mrazek, $3.8 million. I'm going to look you in the eyes and tell you right now, this is negative trade value. Everybody knows this. $3.8 million. He's got the deal for this year and next, and he's also got the modified no trade. His numbers have not been good since he's come to the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you're looking at him in his career, he's had some hot and cold seasons, but since coming to the Leafs and even that one game with the Marlies, he hasn't looked good. 20 games, 3.34 goals against average, .888 save percentage, and the injury woes continued with the Maple Leafs. Now, I know a lot of people are like, good luck trading that. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again. This has happened many times before. Worse contracts over the years have been traded. Peter Mrazek is not the worst contract in NHL history. He's not even in the top 100. He's not in the top 300. He's not in the top 500 worst contracts in the history of the NHL. This guy is going to get traded, but it's going to cost the Leafs. They're going to have to attach something very valuable or multiple decent pieces to move this guy away. Could it be part of a bigger package so it softens the blow? Possibly. The Leafs did it when they made that trade with Ottawa to get rid of Nikita Zaitsev. You take on a little bit, but you get rid of a lot. So I'm not really sure if the Leafs are in a position to take on anything, especially if it's a high cap hit. I don't believe they would want to do that. So maybe a couple, pieces that are not exactly what the Leafs are going to utilize right away are going to be attached to the Peter Mrazek trade, but it's going to hurt a little bit. The guy is just not, the Leafs can't afford him. They just can't. With the money that they need to save, they can't afford to keep him. So Peter Mrazek, negative trade value, definitely is getting traded. Now, this one is a little off for me. Jake Muzzin, bona fide top 4 defenseman, $5.6 million, and this is the second last year in his deal. Now, this is positive trade value, and I know some people might think that's ridiculous, but it's positive, but how much do you really get back for a guy like Jake Muzzin? He's still a very, very valuable piece. He played really well in the playoff series against Tampa. So when Muzzin's healthy, he's worth all the money in the world. But when he's not healthy and you can see him kind of coming back too early and he's a little hurt and whatever else, he's not worth that money. So the Leafs need to figure out if they can save that $5.6 million and allow younger guys to step up and maybe sign some other guys. I put in a video and in a live stream before that if you do trade Jake Muzzin, your blue line could start with Riley Brody, Sandin Liljegren, because you need to have them in the top 4. You have to give them that step. And then Giordano on the bottom pairing, maybe signing a guy like Lyubushkin just to be a temporary placeholder, or you keep Justin Hall. The reason why I'm saying that is everybody always says it, and we all know. The Leafs have been a regular season team. They aren't winning in the playoffs. But you don't necessarily have to go into this year acquiring another bona fide top 4 defenseman. What you have to do is go into the trade deadline looking for that type of guy. So then it bumps everybody down a little bit. So you go into the deadline with a solid defensive group, but you can't be just solid. You have to go over the top. So if you're going to trade Jake Muzzin and his $5.6 million cap hit to save money now, to acquire a new goaltender, to allow some younger defensemen to step in, to spend a little bit more for a forward, then at the deadline, you have to prioritize getting another top 4 defenseman. And I think that might be where the Maple Leafs go. But if he's healthy, and this is a big if, again, if he's healthy, you got to hold on to him. Now, this last one we've talked about in depth, William Nylander, $6.9 million. And of course, he's still got a couple years left on that contract. Whatever you want to say about William Nylander, he's worth the money, and the guy has proven time and time again that he's a really good hockey player. And I know he's not a physical guy. He doesn't always battle in the corners. I don't like that either. Guess what, guys? He's my favorite player, but I really don't like that either. And I've been very vocal about it. If the Leafs can get better by making a William Nylander trade and acquiring something better by making it a big package, go for it. But if you're just trading a 1-for-1 and hoping that it works out and then Willie goes somewhere else and tears it up, what are you doing? You're not making your team better. You're just doing something based off of your opinion. They can't make a lateral move. This year, he had 80 points in 81 games played, almost a point per game. Then when you look into the playoffs, this season and last, 7 points in 7 games. You look at last year's playoffs. He was the leading scorer, 8 points in 7 games, over a point per game. We have been stressing for so long that we need guys to continue to perform in the playoffs. Last year, except for Nylander, nobody was really performing that well in the playoffs. This year, they got a lot of scoring, and they ultimately lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning and the officials of the NHL. And I hate saying that, but it's the truth. Still salty. I'm a biased Leaf fan, just a salty guy. But anyways, I don't know if a Nylander trade makes sense because they can clear up money doing other things, and I'm going to show you guys that right now. and this will turn into another video that we'll make with your guys' suggestions along with mine. So let's look at it. Again, $7.8 million in cap space. I don't believe there's any chance that a guy like Kyle Clifford makes this team. So oh my God, of course it's armchair GM going crazy. So let's try this again. Kyle Clifford, I don't believe he's going to be on this team, but I'm going to replace him with Nick Robertson because the Leafs need to give him a shot this year if he's not being traded. I also believe there's an opportunity for Nick Abruzzese, but if you don't think he's the fit on the fourth line, I think a guy like Curtis Douglas, big, tougher guy, could also be an option for that fourth line. Now, they've talked about guys like Joey Anderson and Pontus Holmberg taking a step, but for right now, let's just bring up Joey Anderson for the sake of filling a roster spot. So right now, as it looks, Kerfoot, Matthews, Marner, Bunting, Tavares, Nylander, Robertson, Camp, Simmons, Abruzzese, and Joey Anderson. The Leafs would still have $7 million in cap space. Now, if you're trading Kerfoot, putting in, again, LTIR removes them from the cap, that gives you $10.5 million to replace him. If you're going to also trade Justin Hall, that gives you an additional $2 million. That would put you at $12.5 million. And then ultimately, the Peter Mrazek trade needs to be done. That gives you an additional $3.8. That would give the Leafs over $16 million to acquire a couple more pieces here. Probably a cheaper depth move. This could be a Pierre Engvall and Ilya Mikheyev and Andre Kasha. Again, they could send down a guy like Joey Anderson or send down a Wayne Simmons and have, any of those guys fill in those spots. And then for the blue line, we have to do it because it makes the most sense. We're going to sign Timothy Liljegren and Rasmus Sandin. Now, for the sake of what I think they're going to get in terms of money, I think it's going to be under $2 million for both of them on bridge contracts, because I'll tell you in a second, it makes no sense for them to sign long-term deals. And the reason I say that is because they haven't really shown how much they can do yet. If they sign a long-term deal and they overperform, then they're going to outgrow that contract way too fast. So I don't believe that that's the case for them. So this is how I would go with it. So Rasmus Sandin along with Mark Giordano, I mean, we can just put it like this right now. If you do end up trading Jake Muzzin, that gives you even more cap space. But even signing Liljegren and Sandin, again, I'm just putting them here. You can move them around wherever you want to move them. You could even put Giordano in the top four, whatever. They're just here as placeholders right now. You have 6 defensemen and you're at $11 million. So you have 2 spots here to fill and you have a goalie spot to fill. This is very manageable. And I do believe it's very possible that all 3 of these guys gets traded. And again, if the option happens where Jake Muzzin gets traded and you keep a guy like Justin Hall, so it becomes like this. You have Riley Brody, Rasmus Sandin, Liljegren, and then you have Giordano and Hall. The Leafs have $15 million for 2 spaces here and a goalie spot right there. So tons of options. This video has gone way too long, but the Leafs have options. I'm sick of hearing people saying that they have no money and they can't do anything. They have a ton of money to upgrade, and that roster there, to me, in terms of the forward group, doesn't look good. So I would think most of that money would go there. And hell, they could even sign Jack Campbell again and try to find a better backup than Shalgren, or they go into the deadline looking for another goalie and another defenseman, maybe even a forward. They can use that 50% retention. But anyways, they have lots of options. So if you are new here, like this video and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long one, but I love and appreciate you guys as always, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video or stream. Peace.